Good morning. Welcome to this morning's panel discussion, Supply Chain Logistics in a Post-COVID World. The pandemic's been an enormous disruptor to the industry, ranging from chip shortages to excessive freight costs and even political interference. Is decoupling from China and regionalization of manufacturing a reality, or what are the likely impacts? I'm joined on stage to discuss this by a great panel. I have Mark Goodwin, who's the CEO of Ventec.
Hello.
Nice to see you, Mark. Then I have to my right here, Dirk Stender from Calcuquote. Roving reporter, friend, and consultant, Keith Bryant from Keith Bryant Consultancy.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Great. So, last week we had COP25 in Glasgow.
From our side of the business, which is laminates, prepregs for the bare printed circuit board, I think this is not going to happen because there's no case for installing manufacturing capacity for laminates and prepregs without and that those suppliers have all gone. They're all in Asia. All of the raw materials we need have to come from Asia. So what's it better to do? Ship the raw materials or ship the added value laminate and prepreg?
Yeah.
For me,
well, that's true.
There's no chance in our business. It's gone. That ship has sailed.
Yeah, that's very true. Dirk, basically they're talking about chip shortages and fab shortages, if you look at the press. But of course, there's no point building all these fabs if you don't have all the infrastructure behind it, like the PCB guys, like a lot of the other capacity that's currently in Asia.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of regionalization, I would differentiate here a little bit. And as Mark said, on the raw material part, on the earlier supply chain, I don't see a massive change in this. Mm-hmm. What could change, nonetheless, is the PCBA assembly. And I see other driving factors. GOP25 could be one, but I see a major driving factor in terms of salaries. Salaries in Asia, salaries in China. And that's not a COVID effect, but a long-lasting effect that salaries go up. And if you think about that in Shenzhen, you're easily paying Eastern European salaries,
right,
then of course, it makes a lot of sense for you to change the supply chain if you're an European PCBA assembly company to say, okay, why do I need to go to China when it's the same price than in Eastern Europe? And with China, I have more and more the, let's say, geostrategical challenges that are somehow combined with the China business. Mm-hmm. That's still a concern for many PCBA, for many OEMs to have production in China. Mm-hmm. And I think once the salaries are more or less on par,
I think you're right. The salaries have certainly come up quite a bit in China and other parts of Asia. But also there's been a lot more automation coming into manufacturing, especially in the PCBA side. So really, the labor factor as part of the landed cost of goods equation is becoming less important.
Yeah, it's definitely becoming less important. And also the problem is not just the cost of labor, but it's the skill set of the people. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm seeing is the biggest problem. You can't get skilled, experienced people to run a production line. And even with automation, even with everything else, you still need that very skilled person. The people that you don't need so much of are what we call the line operators.
Yeah.
But the technicians and the quality engineers, probably you need more of them because the quality of what you're building is going up. Yield becomes more and more important when cost becomes more important. And getting those people pretty much anywhere in the world is a struggle. It's a struggle in the UK, it's a struggle in Europe, it's a struggle in the US, and in a lot of places in Asia, it's starting to become a struggle as well. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I do some work with a couple of large Chinese manufacturers. They've set up sites in Thailand, they've set up sites in Vietnam, and they almost have a 6-month training program for those engineers in China to actually let them loose on a production line. Right. So they're doing the work, they're producing the skilled people themselves because they can't get them. So they're upskilling the workforce and spreading them out to the, I will say, maybe better places to work around Asia.
Yeah, I mean, it's a global problem, this getting skilled workers, for sure. Now, am I correct in reading somewhere that over 80% of the people in Vietnam are university graduates?
I'm not sure it's quite that high. I'd heard 60%.
Right.
But yeah, the skill level in Vietnam is high. The experience level is very, very low. The manufacturing there is still clothing and shoes and all of these kind of goods. So people are used to working in production, but not at the high level of electronics. But again, if you've got a if you've got a clever, degree-educated person, it's not 2 years to train them how to do something important on a production line for us.
Right, okay. So, Mark, the US opened up on November 8th for international flights going back and forward to Europe and to Asia. Do you think that's going to make a big impact on trying to alleviate some of the supply chain problems we've been having? Because essentially a lot of electronic components are carried in the bellies of these aircraft.
It's got to help. More flights has got to help, particularly at the moment when there are 60 or 70 ships at anchor off Long Beach, full of goods that they can't get through the ports on the West Coast. So yes, air freight has a place, but also we're heading into Christmas and then Chinese New Year, so there will be capacity constraints on air freight as well. I mean, just to give you a flavor of what's happened in logistics, so pre-pandemic, a 20-foot general purpose container was around, depending on, with a bit of seasonality, $1,500 to $2,000 door to port.
Now, where's that from?
That's from Shanghai, let's say, through to Rotterdam or through to even to the west coast of America. Now, or at the peak, and it's softened a little bit, we were having to pay $18,000 for a 20-foot general purpose container. Now, so that's the difference between on a piece of 1.6 rigid laminate of effectively nothing per square foot to 30 cents, 35 cents a square foot of cost just in logistics.
So what do you do about that? I mean, do you just pass that on to the customer?
You have to pass it on, because otherwise you are out of business. I mean, my philosophy all the way through this has been charge what I have to charge, but make sure I've got product available for my customers. Because in the end, the price is linked to the cost, but without material, without flour, you can't make bread, you know, and this is a bigger cost.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Okay, so Dirk, what structural changes do you think needs to happen to avoid these supply chain crises in the future?
I think one of the biggest topic is digitalization. Digitalization of your supply chain, because with digitalization, you're able to search for more suppliers and search with the suppliers for more components. So that's one of the things that make your supply chain more active and more resilient to changes, to effects like COVID, where you directly need to change your supply chain structure, where you need to find hard to find components somewhere in the world. And if you still go, and many PCBA companies do that, they go from web shop to web shop to web shop. And if you do that, it takes an hour, 2 hours, but you want to automate things like this. And that's an entry position for automation. Many PCBA companies do that already, but you can go also to next steps and to directly make quotations and make yourself more resilient by quote quicker to your OEMs to save at least there some time, which is often overlooked, because often it takes 1 week, 2 weeks to get a quote out to an OEM. And if you save that time, you better you're more reactive to crisis. And of course, your customer will love it to have a quote much earlier than you said.
Yeah, well, I mean, OEMs are screaming out for more visibility in the supply chain. You know, that's something they're definitely wanting. But I mean, Keith, we're seeing this even happening inside the factory as well, with these companies that have started putting in component X-ray counters and storage towers and stuff like that. Because you know, with all the shortages they're having, they at least know what they've got in their inventory, and so they can work out exactly what they can build. You know, so maybe we can't build this order today, but we can pull that order forward because we know we've got that there. So better traceability and knowledge of what of your inventory and control of it is critical.
Oh, most certainly. I mean, gone are the days when you can have a whole load of boards packed up at the corner of the production line that are missing two components, and you're going to hand solder them when they come in, and hopefully that's not too long because you've got 3 people chasing them and 4 promises have been broken already.
Yeah.
But you know, people can't work that way anymore, and you know, you need to know how much of what you can build. And when you've built them, you need to stop and set up for something else. So, yeah, you know, it's about control on the line. It's about towers. It's about having everything close to the line. And it's also about having machines that you can swap between products very quickly, because that starts to become a bigger and bigger issue. You know, you used to set up for a week and run a whole product, and now you're having to set up for 2 or 3 a day. And as soon as something goes inwards, you want it on the line. Yeah. And if you don't, you're losing money. And if you're losing money, you're losing profit. And if you're losing profit, then with everybody trying to be as slim as they can, you know, things just start going south very, very quickly. So, yeah. All of these things, you know, people say, oh, yeah, but it costs money to buy them. But if you look at the cost of a production line sitting there, waiting for a component to actually drop through the post box, you know, that becomes a crazy number when you actually work it out in reality, compared to, yeah, well, the line's going to be down for a couple of hours, it's not a big deal, which is how people used to think in the good old days. And, you know, that's not a COVID thing, that's just a supply chain thing, it's a productivity thing, it's about yield, and, you know, it's about, you know, the whole world working on smaller margins than it used to.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed days. I mean, Mark, I mean, it used to be pre-COVID, everybody was working to just in time. Do you think, with all the shortages and things these days, do you think the just in time model is dead?
No. People still want to work just in time. They don't share any data, they don't share information, and it makes our job harder. We just happen to be pretty good at predicting their needs based on their historic usage. Now, I think we can get 70, 80% of our business right that way, and then we put our time and effort into the 20, 30% that we can't predict, and there we just have to use brute force and ignorance to get product where it needs to be, when it needs to be, you know, and that's supply chain skills, logistics skills, whatever. Although I've made 2 hires in our business, 2 young guys, both with supply chain backgrounds, recent supply chain university, one with a master's education as well. And my whole plan with these guys is to start mining the data more to get better, because my customers won't share it, but I have really a lot of data. Now what I need is people with the skills to really analyze that data and see what it tells me. Maybe it's something useful, I don't know, maybe it's not, but we should go looking at least.
Yeah. I mean, and you do a bit more of that, Dirk, because I mean, you have visibility into a lot of the component suppliers across the world, and you're part of a suite of new companies that have sprung up, basically, creating this service, if you like, where you've got APIs connected to the actual output and availability coming from these factories.
Exactly. What we do, we are a software provider that is using APIs, distributor APIs, and also partly manufacturer APIs to have more visibility in the supply chain. And we are already since 2014 in the market. So I would say here that's not going to disappear. And the need for digitalization and the positive things, the benefits from digitalization, they don't disappear when COVID is going to be over. What must be clear is that this is going to be the future because the supply chain is going to get more and more complex. As mentioned here on the employee skills side, also the productions will be more and more complex. That's why you need more skills on the employee side, but you need to have also a supply chain process that is up to date, and checking out and calculating Excel-based is simply not what EMS companies can do anymore. And of course, if you have more sophisticated ways to get an idea where which component is, to also purchase electronic components digitally, that's of course a changing factor also compared to your competition. Because
I would imagine it would also play into help you with things like counterfeit avoidance. Actually having better visibility as to where the components are actually sourced from. It's going to help you to have, basically control any issues you might have with counterfeit.
It helps you to support, to make better decisions, to work more on the strategic parts.
Yeah.
And just to be able to work more on the strategic parts and leave a little bit the easy parts behind, that's one of the main factors why digitalization helps you, because you don't want to work on components with a low value. You only want to work there where there's a problem and where there's value in the background. Right. And of course, we have enough components currently where there are problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to, let's see, the elephant in the room here. Taiwan is obviously home to the largest fab in the world, TSMC. It's also home to the 6 largest EMS companies, ranging from Foxconn to a whole range of other ones. What happens if the unthinkable happens and China invades Taiwan and there's an even bigger supply chain disruption there? What's our plan B?
Thank you for that simple, easy, straightforward question, Trevor. I think our plan B is maybe not to use as much in terms of electronics as we do at the moment. And let's go back to cars that are all manual and not 70% of their product being within electronics. Because to be honest, there isn't a plan B. It would be the same as, the nice gentleman from Ventec not being able to buy copper foil anymore. No copper foil, no boards, no assemblies, no box build, no products, nothing.
I suggest we all retire if that happens.
Yeah. I think it's going to be more acute for you because, so many, board builders in China. It'd be massive. It'd be catastrophic in many ways.
There is no plan B in my opinion.
Yeah.
No.
I don't see it either.
Yeah.
So I like the plan B that's retirement.
Probably. Okay, no.
Yeah, well, as I say,
I don't have that luxury, so I need to think about that, how the future is going to work. And of course, if someone has a plan B somewhere, show it to us, then, and of course also develop this somewhere to go to a plan B. And because this is going to, if that unthinkable is happening, then we have a massive problem everywhere. And seeing that Taiwan is an economy specialized only in electronics, if you see what's the share of electronics manufacturing of the whole supply chain in Taiwan, then this is going to be massive.
The world's biggest chemistry suppliers for our business, the world's biggest glass suppliers, the world's biggest copper suppliers are all either in Taiwan or China. So there is no plan B. In my opinion, there is no plan B for this.
And if one tries to take out the other one, then we can't deal with either of them. So that's 70% of our possible components and everything else just completely gone. So there's maybe sheep farming in Scotland is the best opportunity going forwards.
Right, okay. Well, as I say, this is something that's well above our pay grade. So I put it out there for discussion. I'm pretty sure none of us have got an answer to it, but it's.
Trevor, I'm actually pretty sure there isn't an answer to it.
Yeah.
When things started to move to China in terms of our manufacturing, PCBA and suppliers for materials and everything else, there were a few people that at the time we called, doomsday guys who said, well, guys, this could all go bad for you. And, you know, we're now a lot nearer those predictions coming true than we were before. My personal view is it's a commercial world, and I think commercially China would not actually want to do this because it affects them hugely as well. But, you know, here that can tell you where the future is. But, you know, I have to say, you know, I hope that we're all right, and, you know, there's some posturing and there's some throwing of toys at the prams, and then, you know, we get back to a couple of years of normality, because, you know, all the other options, basically, they're all unthinkable.
Yeah. Well, I think that there only is one other option, frankly, and I think that is we do nothing, which is unfortunate, but I think that's going to be all we could do. So let's move on. Last question. Does factory automation level the playing field? Let's start with you, Dirk.
It has to some degree, level the playing field. Yeah, I mean, labor costs in Asia are rising, so anything that can be automated gives us an opportunity to, you know, compete. But our business is largely automated already. You know, I mean, we have big treaters running glass fabric to make prepreg, and then automatic layup and big automatic presses. So there's not so much for us to do. I think this is more downstream of us than in the laminate business now.
Yeah, absolutely. We should always keep in mind that salary differences are justified by different levels of productivity. So we need to stay and be more productive than competitors with a lower salary. So that's basic economics. And now we should think about which parts of the supply chain need automation, digitalization, and then, of course, as I said, most of your part is already automated. Then you see, of course, PCB assembly, and then is the question how much is automated? We are in the United States, in Europe, we have often medium-sized companies, small companies, and then there, of course, you should take a look what's possible there. Yeah. And usually the production is automated. No one is using THT components to a large degree anymore. All this, it's an SMT world in production. And if you think then about what parts still lack automation, we often come across that the supply chain part is it where most leverage for your company, can be done.
Well, there's also the thing where in a lot of the PCBA plants, the machine downtime is ridiculous. You go into a lot of factories and you see a lot of machines sitting there idle. So I think through automation and being able to get faster turnover, changeover, should I say, we should be able to at least reduce that drastically, which would increase our output in manufacturing.
Yeah, factory automation, and more than that, factory control.
Yeah.
Is, first of all, it's flagging up all the areas that people didn't look at before, like downtime, like waiting time, like turnover time. You know, and if it's an hour in a day, it's potentially a production hour, and it should be making money, not costing it. So, yeah, I think it's going to level the playing field to an extent, but I think it's still horses for courses as well. So okay. It's better, but it's not the final solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's brought us to the end of today's panel. We're running out of time, so I want to say a very big thank you to Mark Goodwin from Ventec, to Dirk Stender from Calcuquote, and of course to our friend Keith Bryant from Keith Bryant Consultancy. And thank you for watching. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll be starting our next panel discussion, which is on the topic of optimizing the pick and place process. So stay tuned, and we'll be back with you again shortly.